Hello shooters, today's episode of Man vs. Handgun is the Springfield MC Operator 45 ACP.
Man vs. Gun.
Springfield came up with this handgun to compete in the United States Marine Corps trials for the Special Operations handgun. They did lose out to Colt, but this is, basically a kind of a clone of what the Colt unit is. I'm not a huge fan of either one. I think they're too big and they're too heavy. And if you look at the report of the testing of the Colt, it didn't run well at all. None of the examples they had ran very well. But this is kind of a piece of history. It's a unique gun. A buddy of mine let me borrow this thing. He actually said, hey, I want you to put this through the Man versus Handgun series. And I said, it's probably not going to get a glowing review just because it's so big and so heavy. He says, yeah, I know that, but kind of a piece of history and you being a Marine, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, let's put this through the Man versus Gun paces. Let's check out the weight on this bad boy. Tips the scales at a hefty 41 ounce. So the Glock 17 plus 36 rounds weighs the same as the MC Operator does empty. Even though the slide on a 45 is relatively narrow compared to other guns, it's less than an inch. It's 0.920. The ambidextrous safeties bring the width out to 1.435, and even if you didn't have ambi safeties or they're really narrow or whatever, the stocks on these things still are 1.310. So even though the slide's very narrow, the rest of it's not so narrow. So it got a 1 for weight because it's a heavy beast. It's 41 ounces, and it got a 2 for thickness. Because of the ambidextrous safeties and just because it's the stocks bring it out also. The size is definitely a service gun. It gets 5 points for being a service sized gun. It gets 1 point for being a CCW gun. A, because of the weight, and just B, because of the size. It's a big gun. It's a big, heavy gun, and it gets obviously gets a 0 for being a pocket gun. Okay, it's an all-steel receiver, so it starts off with a 1. They do have some really nice texturing on the front of this. It's not sharp like checkering. I wish that texturing was also on the back strap. So it gets an upgrade for the texturing there, and I wished it would have had an undercut trigger guard there. If it would have had an undercut trigger guard, I would have given it another point, but it doesn't. So the receiver is what it is. The back strap, you can get switches out for arched mainspring housing. It is checkered. It is steel. This grip safety, which we consider part of the back strap, it has one of these humps on here, which has to have in order for everybody to get a good chance of getting that grip safety depressed. That's one. I'm not a fan of grip safeties, but that's another topic. The side panels, there's a bajillion different side panels you can get for 1911s. I like these. They're textured nice. They're not too rough. They're made out of a non-wood product. They feel good in the hand. But since you can get a bajillion different ones, it gets a 5 for. You can get these thin. You can get them fatter. You can get them made out of metal. You can get them just about every material known to man. You can get a 1911 side panel. The trigger pull on this example is right at 4.5 pounds, and like all 1911s, it has a really short reset. That's the beautiful thing about a 1911 trigger, is it's short, light, crisp, good reset. So it gets high marks for the trigger pull, and the trigger pull is the exact same every time. The magazine well is beveled, sort of. It's custom shops will do a bit better, a little bit more beveling than that, but it is beveled, so it does get points for having a beveled magazine well. The magazine, this is one of the weak links in the 1911 system, is the magazines. You know, we can talk about Glocks and M&Ps and XDs and just about every polymer handgun on the planet. The magazines last and last and last. 1911s, they don't last. You got to be picky about what brand you buy. That's a weak link in the system, is the 1911 magazine. The base plate is barely one-handed friendly. Just that little teeny lip right there, that's what gives it some points for being one-handed manipulation friendly. The ease of seating is okay. It's not so good. You know, there's different makes of 1911. They have a pad here, and the pads are the way to go. But since we review these things as they come from the box, this thing isn't so good. It does go in farther than it's supposed to, but since it's I mean, you got to really hit that with the heel of your hand to get that in there, because it's exactly flush with the bottom. So if you do run a 1911, get some magazines that have a little bit of a bump pad there where you can easily seat it better than this magazine here. The magazine release is, you know, John Browning got it right the very first time. The magazine release is in a great spot right there. It is not on the other side. It is one side only, but the location is really, really good. The safety on this 1911 is excellent. John Browning got it right. If you're going to have a thumb safety, this is exactly where you want it. This is mirror image on both sides, so it gets highest marks possible for the location, the operation, and the design of the safety. The slide catch release is right there. It's out of the way of both thumbs. No matter how you hold your thumbs, you're not going to either inadvertently activate it or inadvertently stop it. So it gets high marks for location. It is only on one side. It's not on both sides. You can get them on both sides, but this gun only has it on one side. The rear sight, this is a Novak sight. I'm not a fan of the Novak sights, as you can probably tell, because it's got this great big old slope. There's almost nothing to grab on there for one-handed manipulation. It does have an okay sight picture. These are tritium sights, front and rear, which is a good upgrade that comes from the factory this way. But the sight picture in the daytime is just not the best. I wish they had like Trijicon HDs. These are made by Trijicon. I wish they were Trijicon HDs where they had a nice big orange dot there for in the daytime. In the daytime, these sights kind of wash out to me, the front and the rear sights. It's not easy to pick up the front sight in the daytime for me. At night, you know, it's no big deal because we have the tritium sights, but in the daytime, I wished it had Trijicon HD type front sight there, but it is what it is. It does have a light rail with 3 different positions, so it gets max points there. It is not optics compatible. So overall, the 1911, this example here did a little bit better than I thought it would because of the mirror image safety and a few things like that. So let's go to the range and put some rounds through this bad boy. 1911s are a lot of fun to shoot, particularly this one, since it is heavier than most, and it's got that weight out front. Makes it real easy to shoot. The recoil is pretty dang soft. It's never sharp on a 45, not compared to like a 40, but the extra weight out front does help. The dream about the 1911 is the trigger pull. Nice short trigger pull, around 4.5 pounds, very short reset. Really, it really is the standard when it comes to trigger pulls for combat handguns. One of the things that is disappointing about the 1911 is it's only got a 7-round magazine, and those go pretty quick. You can get 8-rounders, even 10-rounders, but this gun comes with 2 7-rounders. The front sight does wash out on the rear sight. It really shows when I'm running the plate rack. I just had a hard time finding that front sight, so I got some misses that slowed my times down some. The 1911, without doubt, was the finest fighting handgun during World War I. The period between World War I and World War II, throughout World War II, the period between World War II and Korea, the period between Korea and Vietnam, The 1911 reigned supreme and was the king of fighting handguns. Those days are over. It served with distinction. I mean, this absolutely belongs in the annals of history as one of the finest fighting handguns of all time. There's just better choices out there now. But as an example, this 1911 built by Springfield is a great example of a 1911. This is a great 1911 handgun. Just too big, too heavy, and not quite reliable. You talk to anybody that instructs people a lot, and 1911s probably have more malfunctions than all makes put together. Yeah, I know yours runs 100%, but not everybody else's does. But it absolutely deserves its place in history as the finest fighting handgun for the bulk of the last century. Thanks for all your shares, likes, and subscribes. Thanks for your support by watching my channel. Put some comments down below about your thoughts on 1911s. Let's have a conversation down there. And as always, ensure that your training and your practice is preparing you for the real world, your real world, and not for the fantasy land of the shooting range. Have a great day.